Hello, everybody. I want to talk to you today a little bit more about psychic tools and how you should learn how to use them to learn all about your natural abilities. Yes, you do have natural abilities, and I want to talk to you how psychic tools can help you learn about your abilities. So, why bother learning and developing your psychic abilities? I want you to think about that. Is life very literal and concrete? Can you believe every word that someone says? Can you always trust when someone is being honest with you, right? Should you follow somebody's advice just because they say they are older, wiser, or more experienced than you? Now, some people would say yes to all of these questions, and some people would say no to all of these questions. But yet, in our lives, religious upbringing and cultural family traditions, they all condition us and have taught us to believe that the spoken word is truth over what we feel to be right. Young children are taught at an incredibly early age to be obedient to all adults and authority figures in their lives. Now, I have to ask you, is this really a safe thing to teach them? Could we just be setting up young children to be easily manipulated by adults and other people, and especially later in life, right? Because it carries through. The first 7 years of a child's life is so critical for their learning all about the world around them. The family, religious, and school environment during these 7 years will help mold their way of thinking. Now, what can we use to help us better understand each other and the world around us? Well, intuition. Trusting the feelings bubbling up inside that tell us when we know someone is lying to us. Trusting the feelings and extrasensory knowing when someone is speaking the truth. Words mean nothing at all by themselves. Okay, let me say that again. Words mean nothing at all by themselves until the essence and energy of an emotion or meaning or intention is felt or sensed by you. Right? So, what is this sensing? It is your extrasensory perceptions, your psychic senses. Okay? Our psychic senses, along with our physical senses and cognitive capacities, help us to decipher and understand the intentions and meaning of the words being spoken and what is happening around us in the environment. Our psychic senses add an extra layer of understanding to the world and people around us. And it happens so naturally that we don't even know that it's happening. We perceive this knowing at times and think it's just ourselves guessing or it's all a coincidence, right? Well, there are no coincidences and there are no guesses. And that's going to be a whole nother topic to talk about. We draw to ourselves the answers from the environment that best fit the situation. The biggest problem that we have and face and stumble over time after time is that we allow fear and doubt to hold us back from the knowing. How have your psychic senses helped you in your life? Think about it. Relationships? Career choices? Buying important, expensive items? You know, I heard a radio is a better way of marketing platform to sell products because it stimulates the right side of the brain where your feelings and creativeness is used. And marketers learn all about how powerful it is to reach a customer to stimulate an emotional reaction to buy their product through radio. Right? Security companies try really hard to touch on people's fears of other people to get them to buy their products. And this right side of the brain is also tuned into your psychic senses. they've helped you, kept you out of harm's way, right? You know of stories of how somebody followed perhaps a voice or just a knowing to doing something different than they normally do, and it helped save their lives. So what's the most important element in beginning to use your psychic senses? Trusting your intuition. You cannot even hear the inner guidance until you can trust your own natural ability that you have, in which the world calls intuition. The intuitive voice is always there, though rarely loud and booming. It is the voice of direction that fills you with peace and certainty. You just know. And no one can convince you otherwise, because you just know. When you trust that intuitive voice or intuitive knowing, your life feels more stable, doesn't it? Yeah. And to begin this relationship of trusting your intuition, you must not only hear it and feel it, but also follow the suggestions offered and not ignoring it. How many times have you ignored it and then just went, oh, I should have done that, right? I should have listened to my gut feeling, my gut instincts. You know, the intuitive voice is subtle, yes, but it's always present, always taking a way to try to get you to understand, to do something. And this intuitive voice could help, like maybe tell you to take a different route home when you don't know why, and then later learn that the new route saved you from a car accident, or perhaps the traffic of a car accident on your usual route home, right? Calling a friend when they pop into your mind to find out that they really needed to hear from you. And you're like, oh, I'm so glad I called you. All of these examples are ways in which the intuitive voice speaks out to you. It is this action of following the intuitive voice which will foster trust. This is the springboard to help you launch into exploring your psychic senses. You got to believe and trust in them. Now, this is the best blessing of psychic intuition, for when we trust it, follow it, a natural series of events unfolds, which brings us into the right places at the right time. This is truly being in the flow of the divine. Now, intuition is a doorway that reveals a higher reality and clearer experience of the divine. And in the end, it will be your subjective interpretation of what your intuition brings that either frees you or inhibits your ability to act and grow. And I took this quote from Penny Pierce's book called Frequency, The Power of Personal Vibration. It's a really good book. I highly recommend it. So what really is intuition? Well, intuition is just an acceptable term that society uses for all of the psychic senses rolled into one word. The art of properly using your intuition is the true understanding that there are components of your psychic being at work here. Now, the dictionary says the definition of intuition is the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. You know, that definition kind of sounds a little psychic to me, right? So then I went to Merriam-Webster's dictionary for the definition of psychic, and this is what it says: lying outside the sphere of physical science or knowledge, sensitive to non-physical or supernatural forces and influences, marked by extraordinary or mysterious sensitivity, perception, or understanding. Well, that's a big brouhaha, just basically saying, you know, your intuition as well. So I find that really interesting. So let's break down this generalized term of intuition into the components of the psychic senses. And the best place to begin exploring your psychic senses is by getting to know how they feel, how they come across to you. Your psychic senses are very different from your physical senses. But yet your physical senses need the energies and frequencies from the environment to stimulate the nerve endings of your body to be interpreted by the conscious brain, okay? And now the human body can also pick up very small They pick up very small percentages of what the environment is bringing to us. Okay, that's your physical senses. You know, the example is like the visible light spectrum of what we can see is needed for your eyes to see what we call objects and people and things around us. But the use of this visible light spectrum is very limited for the human eyes, right? Other animals and insects have the physical ability to use more of this light spectrum than humans. Our ears use sound waves to help us interpret the sound energy waves as they float into our range of hearing them. The same goes for all of our physical senses. Even though as humans we have much limited ranges in our physical senses, it is when we tune into the psychic senses at the same time that our range of sensitivity expands beyond the physical, and we can tune into the metaphysical realm for more information. So how do we know that we are using our psychic senses? Our psychic senses are the very subtle layers beyond the physical senses, and they work hand in hand with the physical senses to give a person extra information coming to them from the environment in the universe. They commingle with our physical senses, and it's so subtle, it's hard to feel them unless it's a strong sense of doing something. Okay, I like to give the example of the 5 physical senses and the basic 5 psychic senses. They commingle, they work together. Okay, they work together so well that you're not even aware of it unless you want to explore the psychic senses and how they work for you. So again, the psychic senses are working right alongside our physical senses day in and day out. They never stop. They are never separated from us. You have the choice to pay attention to their subtle messages or ignore them. And most people believe the psychic senses are given to special people as gifts. They don't realize that they too have natural psychic abilities. They call their immediate knowing their intuition, or it was a good guess, or just a coincidence when their psychic abilities give them a message and they follow it. And you can strengthen your awareness and sensitivity of your psychic senses. And how do you do this? By training yourself. Training yourself with the use of psychic tools that we have available to us and you have available to yourself as well. Now, I want you to understand that all of these psychic tools are just that. They're tools. Okay, whatever item it is that you're working with does not have on its own power have any ability to control you or make you do anything. It's just a tool. Like using a hammer to drive a nail into a piece of wood, or a pair of scissors to cut a piece of paper, or a screwdriver to screw in a screw in the wall. No tool has a power of its own to do the job. It must be used by a person, and that tool will be used however that person intends to use it. And same thing applies to these psychic tools. You know, though people have quickly made up their minds that all psychic tools are evil because they deal with the unknown. Hollywood and their movies of the paranormal and psychic abilities are all meant to scare people. Scaring people makes good money for Hollywood, right? We kind of like to be scared. But you know what? It's not the truth about psychic abilities, all right? That is the bottom line. They're not telling you the truth about the paranormal and the metaphysical realm. So in this day and age, we have come to understand our psychic abilities better through science and quantum physics, as well as relying on the teachings of the master teachers like Buddha, Jesus, and other master teachers who teach that there is more to ourselves and the life than we know. What are these psychic tools? Well, I'm sure you know some of them. We've got tarot cards, we have pendulums, we have dowsing or divining rods, remote viewing, spoon bending, and basic psychic exercises. And I'm going to briefly go over each psychic tool and give my recommendations as to why it's a good tool to explore in your journey of learning all about your natural psychic abilities. And I highly recommend, if you're open enough to receiving and understanding, to explore as many as you can of these tools to help you better understand your natural psychic abilities. You will find after a while what you have learned from using a psychic tool, that information comes to you even without using the tool, such as reading somebody's energy without the use of a tarot deck, or find something in your home, store, or place as you allow your psychic senses to pull you in the right direction, like divining rods would. Before working with a psychic tool, you must be in a state of balance, relaxation, and in alignment energetically with your higher self, which in turn is in alignment with Source or God or the universal energy of all. It's all the same. You must always take the time to do at least a 10-minute meditative session with the intention of focusing upon working with this psychic tool in a positive manner with love and light, so that your body and physical senses can be ready to work hand in hand with your psychic senses. Okay, it all works together. So the first thing that I'm going to talk to you is about tarot cards. I have a basic deck of tarot cards, or you may, get angel cards. You may pick up all sorts of different intuitive cards out there. There's, the Psychic Tarot by John Holland that I really like. There's the Path of the Soul that I use, which are destiny cards. And then I've used the Law of Attraction by Abraham and Esther Hicks that focus on your intentions and learning more about your psychic senses along with money, and the law of attraction of what your thoughts are creating in your reality. Okay, so there's all sorts of different things out there that you can reach out and learn. Whatever grabs your interest, go for it. So, the history of tarot, I'm just going to give you a little bit. The tarot originated in northern Italy early in the 15th century, okay, about 1420 to 1440. And written records tell that the tarot was regularly used to play a game similar to bridge. The game was popular throughout much of Europe for centuries, and it is still played today, particularly in France. Early poets also used the titles of the trump cards to create flattering verses called, and I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, tarocchi appropriati, describing ladies of the court or famous personages. Although it is possible that tarot cards might have also been sometimes used for other purposes, there's no clear evidence at all of such use until long after the cards were invented. There is a record from a trial in Venice in 1589 that suggested that the tarot may have been associated with witchcraft, at least in the minds of the accusers, of course. But really, it wasn't until after 150 years later, after the appearance of the tarot, that it was used, for what we use it today. And there's really no references connecting tarot with magic or divination until the 18th century. And I got this information from a blog by Mary K. Greer's, Greers tarot blog. Okay, so you can learn more about that as well. So working with the tarot cards can be an excellent way to start your journey in working with your psychic abilities. It may feel awkward at first, especially if you're not used to allowing yourself to just tune in or focus in on the imagery, the pictures shown on the card. If you enjoy looking at artwork and allowing your mind to drift into another world, or allow the artwork to move you to an emotional response, you're tuning into the energy of that artwork very naturally, right? It is the same thing that you do with working with the imagery or pictures of a tarot angel, or intuitive card. And I'll show you. I love these cards because I love art. I love allowing my creative side, my intuitive side, my psychic side to tune into pictures, okay? So, here's a really good one. Isn't that wild? All the colors and the shapes and the swirls. And as you allow yourself to tune into the energy of this, you'll start to get a feeling for the meaning behind the card. Cool, huh? All right. So, there are many layers of meaning in each card as you continue to work with them, and they stimulate your psychic senses. The psychic senses come forth from the subconscious mind that is in connection with the environment on an energetic frequency basis. That's a whole nother topic, and I believe I may have a video on energy, so I highly suggest that you watch that as well, because everything is energy in this world. There's really nothing solid. It's all energy and frequencies. Okay, so next, if you're really not into the intuitive cards or tarot deck, you are welcome to kind of research here. And I've got all sorts of things here at the side of me. Pendulums, okay? The pendulum, swings by way of responding to your body's energetic field in conjunction with your higher self. Intuition and the connection with the spiritual realm to receive messages from your spirit guides or loved ones. There's many ways you can use these tools. And this response causes minute movements in your arm and wrist that allow the pendulum to move in a certain direction to answer your questions. And this movement in your wrist and arms is called the ideomotor reflex. Science has looked into this, which means that the muscles in your arms are moved by the subconscious activity in your brain. So by asking your question from the pendulum, your energy field is responding to what your inner self, higher self knows subconsciously, but then consciously you're unaware because you are so conditioned to closing off your intuition and instead listening to your rational mind. So you're quite surprised when the pendulum comes up with the right answer, but really it's coming from you subconsciously, okay? Again, this is just a tool. So if you don't have a pendulum and you don't want to go out and buy one, okay, you can use perhaps a crystal or a necklace that has some kind of a point at the end of it, has a little bit of a weight to it so it does swing, okay? You can use anything in your toolbox, such as this type of screw, okay, just on a string. Or if you like to go fishing, you can use, what do you call this? A bobber, a weight. I like this one, actually. This is really a cool pendulum. Just there on the string. Okay. So the pendulum receives information from your auric or energy field via your higher self and beyond, and then acts as a transmitter of that energy through your arm and the swinging motion of the pendulum string. So as you learn to trust and use your pendulum, you'll begin to make a stronger connection with your auric field with the spiritual realm. This is when you know that you can use your pendulum to reach and communicate with the spiritual realm. The art of using the pendulum takes time, so stick with it and don't be discouraged. I've used the pendulum. It's okay, but I prefer other means of connecting, okay? But if the pendulum really, excites you, then I say go for it. Start really learning all about the pendulum. Now, the interesting thing about the pendulum is that you have to ask the right questions, okay? And as you learn about the pendulum, you'll find that, it will swing in one direction for yes, swing in another direction for no. Maybe it may go around and around for, okay, this is a maybe and I'm not sure, or maybe your question's not very good, so it's kind of confusing. So there's all sorts of big books and YouTube videos, all sorts of things out there for you to learn. Okay. And your muscles have to be relaxed. You don't want to be fighting any type of adrenaline, or if you're sick in your body, you have to be in a natural state of readiness to receive, to allow this to happen. It's a mind, body, spirit connection here. And if you're sick and you're not feeling good, it's not the time to be using any type of psychic tool, okay? We want you healthy, happy, positive, and open to receive. All right, so that's the pendulum. Next, I'm going to talk about dowsing rods. And dowsing rods are also a form of a pendulum, okay? Now, the dowsing rods, I'm going to give you a little bit of history of those as well. Dowsing is widely believed to be an ancient practice for finding water and communicating with spirits. Now, while this may be true, the practice wasn't mentioned in the historical record until later in the modern era. It's been hypothesized by historians that dowsing originated in the 16th century in Germany. Originally, it was used to find precious metals. As the practice became increasingly popular throughout the 1500s, so did the uses for using the dowsing rods. In the 16th century, there was a time of capitalizing on natural resources, and they really didn't have any other ways of finding these natural resources except for using the dowsing rods. German mining became wildly sought after in Europe due to their successful techniques at finding precious metals such as gold, silver, copper, other sorts of things. And then as strict religious beliefs started to come into play here and throughout the European area, dowsing was frowned upon and viewed as evil by the uneducated people, okay? And I'm sure the rulers as well, because rulers like to control their people. But as settlers moved to the Americas, over time and states were established, dowsing became popular throughout the New World. So they actually brought this practice from Europe. Okay, so I have my dowsing rods here. You've seen them if you've seen my other videos. Okay, and I like to make sure they're in a neutral position, right straight forward. And then when they're ready to go, let's do a yes. Can you show everybody a yes? Which is going to be an X. The rods are going to cross. There you go. Thank you. See that? That's a yes. Kind of like X marks the spot. And then if it's a no, it's wide open like you missed it. It's wide open. There you go. Nice and wide. There we go. We showed it. Excellent. And then if it's a maybe, they usually go to one side. Show me a maybe. Got to do it together, guys. There you go. Show me a maybe. Excellent. And then, like, if I tell the rods I'm going to find something, okay, then the rods will respond together to help show me the way, okay? So if, let's say I wanted to find the closet in this room, can you guys point to the closet of this room together? Where's the closet? Which side of me in the video is the closet? Where is it? Work together, guys. Work together. There, I think you got it. Yeah. It's over there. That's my closet right there. Okay. So that's how they work. And it takes time. It takes time. All right. So those are dowsing rods. They're going to be lots of fun. I have a couple videos on there. You can actually play a shuffle game with them. Now that was an interesting video to make. Kind of fun too. All right, next I want to talk about remote viewing. If you haven't heard about remote viewing, it really is the art of clairvoyance, okay? So when we talk about psychic senses, we're talking about clairvoyance, clear seeing, clairsentience, which is clear feeling, as well as a physical feeling. You can actually have a physical sense of perhaps somebody touching your arm, or an emotional feeling as well. So that's clairsentience. Clairaudience is when in your mind's ear you hear somebody talking to you, such as, when you're driving down the road, and I'll never forget, I just heard, slow down. So I slowed down just naturally. I just followed the voice and I averted hitting somebody. So that's clairaudience. Clairgustance is tasting something. And I've had this happen, when I'm thinking about my mother, or I'm in the kitchen, all of a sudden I get this taste of something and I'm like, oh my gosh, my mom used to make that, and oh, okay, mom's here. Hi, mom. Then there's claircognizance, where you just know. Claircognizance is kind of the same as intuition. People refer that to intuition, where you just know. You got this feeling, you just know this is something that I have to do, or perhaps this is somebody that you are attracted to, right? Something's telling you to go ahead and further along that relationship, because it just feels good. It's just something that you know about. So remote viewing is the government's scientific research into psychic abilities, because they heard about the Russians. The Russians were, and they're still very much into psychic senses as well. And so they started looking into psychic senses, and remote viewing is the ability to acquire accurate information about a distant or non-local place, person, or event without using your physical senses or any other obvious means. It is associated with the idea of clairvoyance, and sometimes called anomalous cognition or second sight. They don't even use the word intuition. And the difference between natural psychic receptivity and remote viewing is that the latter is a trained skill that the average person can learn to do. So, the government, really doesn't like the term psychic. They don't like psychics because sometimes psychics are a little over the edge. They're too, they call it woo-woo. You guys are too woo-woo, or this is, the scientific method of remote viewing, and they're not going to call it psychic. They're not going to even call it intuition, but they've learned that yes, you can train yourself how to focus in on a distant object or a distant person. And, police use psychics who use remote viewing to find missing people, missing children, or, a missing body, that sort of thing, or, tell me more about this case. So it's all about remote viewing, which really is a standardized way of learning how to use your psychic senses. And so the military, again, did not like to use any words or associations with the psychic or occult terms that most of the world is viewed as fake and unreal, unfortunately. But our quantum physicists have started to learn that the psychic senses are real, and that everything is energy, and that we are tuning in to these energies and frequencies. So in reality, remote viewing is using the dominant psychic sense of clairvoyance, along with the other psychic senses that we talked about. And there were physicists Russell Targ and Harold Puthoff studying parapsychology You can actually study psychic senses in other situations with parapsychology. And you can get a degree in this if you're interested. And so these gentlemen were researchers at Stanford Research Institute, SRI, and are generally credited with coining the term remote viewing to distinguish it from the closely related concept of clairvoyance. Although, according to Russell Targ, the term was first suggested by Ingo Swann in December of 1971 during an experiment at the American Society of Psychical Research in New York City. So basically, there's a whole process, but they basically put a target, a picture or something in an envelope and give it just a basic name. It doesn't really mean anything, but it's in association with the process of doing this this very distinct steps of doing remote viewing. Okay, and there's lots of information out there. I did a workshop with Paul Smith, learned lots of wonderful things from that, and there's the Monroe Institute that you can actually take some remote viewing classes as well. And the average person, goes in there. People who don't believe in psychic abilities, but yet they believe in remote viewing, which I think is kind of interesting. All right, so that's remote viewing there. And there's another way that you can explore your psychic abilities, okay, is spoon bending. Have you heard of spoon bending? I've done a couple videos and do this in my Facebook page, Spiritual Psychic Mediumship group, about spoon bending. Okay, it's really focusing and honing in and tuning your energies into the metal of the spoon. Okay, and you make the metal, okay, very malleable, very soft. Okay, I'm not using any tricks or anything, but you can actually put this type of intention into the spoon and make it happen. And usually most people start bending the spoon like this. Okay, and then as you continue learning and growing and working with your intention and your focus, you can do all sorts of things. Like then I got a spoon to do this. Pretty cool, huh? And then I really wanted to twist the spoon, and so I started working with twisting the spoon. And it's all about intention and focusing your energies. And you can do this. You can do this. And then you can actually start working with forks as well. And then here's another one. I've got a whole basket full. Just love bending spoons. It's so much fun. All right. So then you can even go into psychic exercises, doing your own psychic exercises, such as, shoot, I didn't bring it over here, but I have a bamboo box with a little lid to it, and I put some dice in there and I shake it up, and then I just kind of tune into the dice inside the bamboo box, and I focus on the numbers that are facing upward. So when I open up the little door and I look in, I go, oh, there's the numbers. I started out with 1 dice, okay? And then you can start with 2 dices, okay? 2 die, and then move it up to 4 or how many you want to do. And it's really cool when after a while your percentage of getting it intuitively correct starts going up. Okay, and then you realize, yes, I'm training myself. I'm training and trusting and allowing the feelings that are coming to me and understanding that they are psychic. They're my psychic senses here. So in conclusion here, I want you to view yourself as a human being who has the full ability to access at will your complete awareness, both in the physical and non-physical of the world around you. Okay, you have this natural psychic ability that works hand in hand with your physical senses every second of the day. And I highly recommend that you take the time to explore your psychic senses by picking up a psychic tool to help you learn more about who you really are. Okay, have questions? Let me know. It's great seeing you. Have a good day.